Well, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but man, am I having trouble with my technology. Now, what I should probably do is when we're done today, try to do some bugging. I'm not a techie guy. No techie, man, no techie. Um, we have been looking at how we love. And one of the ways we learn to love is by being slow to anger, which is an imitation of who? God. It is slow to anger, slow to wrath. Remember, if love says, oh, by the way, I don't know if anybody's been keeping up with the news, but man, did you see what's happening in Germany and Belgium? Holy mackerel, Annie. All that rain, boy, they've had flooding that has been epic. So we need to be praying for those nations and those people, as well as what's happening in our own country. It's amazing how small this world has become with the advent of all the technology, despite the fact that it can so often fail us, which it is doing this morning, right? So one of the things I want to do is I want to look at the result of a love that takes its time. This idea of love taking its time is actually a reflection of God himself. And I don't know if I've said this earlier this week or in one of the previous conversations, but you know, I like to remind us that God doesn't ask us to do anything that he doesn't do. And so when he says that love isn't easily angered, what he's saying is, I am love. And although you may be in rebellion, or you may be opposed to me, or you may not act according to what I've made you to be and am creating you to be, I do not let my anger flare at you. I am long fused and long suffering, and I bear up with you. The result sometimes of our not being patient, of our being quickly offended or provoked, can be an inability to love well. That the fruit of who we are and the fruit of what God is making us to be, for whatever reason, usually because of our temperament, is unable to be seen or experienced by those with whom we're struggling. So we visited Isaiah 58 a while back, and we were looking at fasting that our God accepts as, well, we were looking at the type of fasting that the Jews were doing at the time, that Isaiah was warning them about, that God is saying, listen, no, that's hypocritical. Your lips may be close to me, but your heart is far from me. You seem eager for me to come near. You seem eager to know my ways, but in the end, no. Your seeming causes your fasting to end in quarreling, and he says throwing wicked fists and taking advantage of the people around you. Then he goes on to say, isn't this the kind of fasting that I have chosen? Right? Not a single day for you to somehow express your intentions or to come and, quote, worship, but a lifestyle, a life recognizing God's sovereignty, a life that is daily seeking after him, a life that is perpetually humbled before him, a life that is eager and looking for the opportunity to serve, a life that is humble and willing to receive, a life that is ready with hands open and feet that are just ready to run, to be able to serve, to pray, to help. And so when we are willing to be patient with God as he takes his time, as we're willing to continue to beseech him, abiding in him, and both petitioning and praying and bringing before him certainly our heart's desires, but then a heart willing to hear his desire, When we're willing then to hear it, even though it may not match our desires, it might not match what we wanted, it might not match what we expected, will we become angry with God? Will we be quickly offended? Will we be provoked by him? Will we be irritated? Will we blame him? Or will we recognize, okay, Father, you have me in this moment. How would you have me respond? And then will you give me the strength and the wisdom to respond with joy? Will I be grateful for what you have presented to me? Will I be grateful? It's funny, I was having a conversation with a young couple yesterday, and we were talking about different aspects of relationship, and I was encouraging them to make sure that they were developing the right parts of the relationship. That anytime we do something that is outside God's design, listen up. Anytime we do something that is outside God's design, and we make that a part of our life or relationship, we're actually forfeiting what God was actually wanting us to do. So not doing something isn't the point. It's the recognition that the Lord would say, hey, in the context of your relationship, in the context of your season of life, I would have you do these things. But when we choose to something else, right, what we've done is we've replaced the thing that God would have us do with the thing that he was suggesting we may not. What do when we do that? We forfeit the blessing that the thing we were supposed to do would have given us. And the thing we choose to do that God would not have had us do, we now have to live out the consequence, not only of the act that we've chosen as the consequence, the discipline that will come, but then the forfeiture of the blessing that we would have received, the growth and maturity we may have attained if we had actually obeyed and done the thing we were supposed to do instead of replacing it with the thing that we weren't supposed to do. So it's one thing for us to sin. It's another thing for us to not recognize that the thing we chose to do instead of the thing we were supposed to do, we place that in our life, pushing the thing we were supposed to do out of the way. And we not only now suffer the consequence of the decision, we not only do we do that, but we also forfeit the growth we would have attained and the blessing that would have come with it. And then we get angry with God. Then we get perturbed with God. Then we begin to blame God. And so what happens is the anxiety and the anger or the disappointment or the unmet expectations rises up in us, causes us to be cantankerous or contentious or consternated. And now we start treating people as we feel. And it's not God's fault. It is the fault of our choices. But when we choose to do the things that God would have us do and to obey, we find that he can bless us in the midst of that obedience, and that my life is blessed by the mere obedience. I receive what it is he has for me because I've done the thing he's asked me to do. And I have denied myself the thing that I would have rather done, that would have replaced the thing that God would have me do, that I now missed out on because I would choose to sin. So the blessing that comes is actually manifold and magnificent if we'll obey. And what that tends to do is causes us to live at peace when we obey. What does that happen then? Our life begins to reflect the very fasting that God would have us fast. Verse 6 of Isaiah 58 goes on to say, is not this the kind of fasting I have chosen? In other words, as you have sought me out and not only seem eager to know my ways, but you actually do want to know them and you obey them. You don't just want me to come near, but you actually long for me to come near and receive me when I come. The resulting attitude and behavior looks like this. We begin to loose the chains of injustice, to untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free, and to break every yoke. We begin to share our food with the hungry, being alert and aware of the needs of others. And we begin to see the wonderful privilege of providing the poor wanderer with shelter. We begin to practice hospitality. When we see the naked, we clothe them. And again, this is all very practical, but it's also very spiritual. And am I ready, having experienced the true fasting with God and my relationship with Him, and at being at peace with Him, and recognizing that His words, as I obey them, enables me to grow in the manner which He'd have me grow and bear the fruit that He'd have me bear, then now not only do I have these practical things to give, these very real expressions of meeting the felt need of another, but the spiritual equivalents begin to pour from me too. And so if I see somebody who's spiritually vulnerable or naked, what do? I cover them, right? Oh, is this not the kind of food? Is it not to share your food with the hungry, provide the poor wanderer with shelter, when you see the naked to clothe them, and not turn away from your own flesh and blood? And all of a sudden I'm honoring my family, and I'm taking care of them, and I'm willing to forgive, and I'm not easily provoked or irritated. Listen to this. See, when all this happens, when this fasting actually expresses itself in such a way as to prove your desire for me as genuine, see, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then we will experience the presence of God in a profound way, and our light will go from this flickering, smoldering wick to a flame that lights up and sheds light on all around us. Then you will call, this says, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Your healing, as you bring healing to others, you yourself will be healed. Then your righteousness, your nature, your character, the person of Christ and the Holy Spirit, that reputation will go before you. And listen to this, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. You have nothing to fear. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. What do we see? Why do we pray and you do not hear us? Why do we fast and you do not see it? The Lord is saying, no, if you truly seek me and truly want me and desire for me to come close and obey my words and see them as precious as the life that I intended them to be, you will recognize that your prayers are answered, that you are heard on high. Then you will call. When all of that begins to result in a character and a nature and an attitude and a behavior that seeks to bless because it's alert and aware of the needs around, and it is prepared to give, then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and He will say, here am I. If you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and the malicious talk, the anger, the frustration, the impatience, the right? And if you spend yourself on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness. And your night will become like the noonday. So not only will your light rise and shed light on all around and bring life to those who see it, your own night, your own times of darkness, your own times of trepidation will become as daytime. So if you do away with the yoke of oppression, with the pointing finger and the malicious talk, bring the truth of God, the freedom of God into the lives of others. If you do away with the pointing finger and the malicious talk, if you spend yourselves on behalf of the hungry and satisfy the needs of the oppressed, then your light will rise in the darkness, and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you always. You need not be concerned of His presence, but in fact He will take your foot and place it on the stone before you. The Lord will guide you always, and He will satisfy your needs. It may not always look like what you expected, but now you have a supple heart, a soft heart, that will receive what God has for you, for me, even when it doesn't seem to be the thing I asked for. We will now have the wisdom and the tender heart to receive and not respond with anger or frustration or disappointment. When we are consistently and persistently, truly and authentically and really seeking Him out, desiring to know Him in His ways, and receive it when He offers it, and our lives begin to be transformed, and our light begins to shine, and our healing comes when we are used as an instrument of healing in the lives of others. This is all impossible if we're quick to anger. This is all impossible if we're easily provoked. This is all impossible if we're so easily offended. my testimony begins to shrivel, and my ability to be used as an instrument of healing in God's hands begins to diminish. And the love that I'm called to give lacks evidence. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land. He doesn't say he'll take you from the sun-scorched land. No. He says he'll satisfy your needs in it. Sometimes we're easily provoked because we thought God would remove us from this place. And now here I am. But he says, no, I'm not removing you. I want you in this world and not of it. And it's a scorching place, but I promise I will quench your thirst. My spirit will rise up in you like a spring welling up. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in the sun-scorched land, and he will strengthen your frame. What will happen next? Well, now you'll be like a well-watered garden, planted, cultivated, watered, fresh to refresh, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your people will rebuild what is broken around you, and you will raise up the age-old foundations. You will raise up the very name of God. You will then be called the repairer of broken walls, or broken hearts, or broken relationships. They will say, blessed is the one, blessed is the man who desires and seeks peace and pursues it and makes peace when the opportunity arises, who wades into the fray, not to join in the fight, but to bear the conflict with courage as to bring peace. And you will be a restorer of those who have been so deeply damaged. I believe that's the fruit of the love God speaks of. And I believe that's the love that can be expressed when we're very careful not to be easily offended or provoked or irritated by God himself. Which, when that happens, is actually a reflection, generally, of the condition of my own heart, not God's lack of goodness. May we be grateful. May we seek him with sincerity. May we want to know his ways. May we fight through the flesh's desire and fatigue to seek him out, to rest in him, as he already seeks us. And may we bear the fruit of a love that's not easily offended.